Hey all you hippies and free spirit users and boozers, this is Noel with creationeffects.com, and this is the main tutorial for Creation Trippy Effects. Creation Trippy Effects is an After Effects template that lets you create hypnotic or mesmerizing animations, as well as trippy or psychedelic looks for your footage in Adobe After Effects. It's a huge collection of effects, it's easy to use, and every effect is customizable so you can play with the controls and come up with a bunch of different looks. Included here are 32 animations, 20 effects for footage, 20 animated titles or text effects, 12 transition effects for editing, 7 custom design elements for motion design, and 8 effects for your green screen footage, or anything with a transparent background. Altogether, that's about 100 different effects, so there's a lot to go over. I'm going to try and resist the temptation to show you everything, because that would just, I can't, it's too much. So I'm just going to give you an overview of what's in here and how to customize it. For some of the more complex effects, I'll be making separate video tutorials that will show you how to get the most out of those effects. But those are optional. I think if you just read the instructions in each comp, you'll be fine, even if you're a beginner. So let's get right to it. First thing you'll want to do is make sure you open the zip file correctly. So here's the file you'll download from Creation Effects, and if you're on a Windows machine, you'll want to right-click it and look for an option that says Extract All. And if you open the contents that way, you won't get the error message about missing files in After Effects. If you're on a Mac, you can just double-click it and open the folder, and you'll see a 4K version and an HD version. If you don't need 4K, I recommend the HD because it'll just be faster. And then open that up in After Effects 2020 or later. And when it opens up, you'll see some instructions here, so you'll want to read that. And the next thing you'll want to do is import your footage into the project. So go to File, Import, and File. And I've got this clip ready of the psychedelic mushroom. Actually, I don't know what type of mushroom that is. Let me just put that disclaimer out there. I didn't do my research for this project. I don't do drugs. I didn't do drugs in college, so all those psychedelic looks for your footage, I'm just going on what I saw online. So just keep that in mind before you write me an email and say, oh, that's not what it looks like to be on LSD, man. That's how stoners talk. Anyway, I'm going to put my mushroom footage into this comp here called Put Your Footage Here. And what that'll do is it'll let you preview all of the effects in the template with your footage. I'll just close that. Let's just go through all of these. We'll do it in order. So animations, like I said, there's about 32. Each of these are unique animations, but within some of these comps are multiple presets. Let me just open this Alice in Whirlyland. And I love that that's playing in almost real time. I'm using After Effects 2022, which just came out, and it's a whole lot faster. So yay for that. Anyway, you can see we've got 5 different presets here, and we've got this instructions layer at the top. This will be in every comp, and I definitely recommend that you unhide that and then read it through, because it will help you a lot if you're customizing the effect. And let me show you how to customize it. If you select any of these layers and then go to your Effect Controls panel, and if you don't see this panel, just go to Window and choose Effect Controls. In there, you're going to see all the slider controls for customizing the effect. And then below that, below this line, are all the effects that are used to create this animation. So, I mean, there's a ton in here, but these circle effects are really fast. So the idea here is just play with these and see what you can make, because you could turn this into something that's completely unique and different using these controls. And then also, if I scroll down to the bottom, there's a number of effects here that are hidden. So these are optional effects that I've chosen. So you can just unhide them and get a different look. So you'll find optional effects like these throughout the template, so be sure to look for them. Let me close that. And let me go over some more atomic spaghetti and plankton. These are actually taken from the pixel pusher template. So Pixel Pusher is a different template from Creation Effects that lets you create particle animations. And some of them get pretty trippy, so I thought they would be good to include here. But let's open up one of those. For these, just be sure that you've got the resolution set to full, because if you go to half or less, it really changes how it looks a lot. But these will be fun to play with, I think, because you can really come up with a bunch of different looks. I mean, this is the same effect as this. The only difference is the values on these controls are different. And I mean, you can go look at the Pixel Pusher template and see a huge variety of different versions of the same effect. So there's just a lot of possibilities with those. The endless fractals, this is a cool one. You probably saw these in the demo video. You can make fractal animations that just keep zooming in forever and ever with this. And it uses the fractal effect that comes with After Effects, which I have been curious about for a long time, because every time I've tried to use it, it just seems completely useless. And I think that's how pretty much everyone has felt, whoever looked into that effect. But after playing with it a great deal, I realized that it's actually an awesome effect. It just needed some adjustments to make it a little more user-friendly. So that's what I've done here. I've got instructions, and this is one I think I'm going to have to make another tutorial on. So you can look out for that. Whenever I do decide to make a tutorial for one of these effects, I'm going to add it to the instructions for that comp. So it will be right up here in the top. You'll be able to see if there's a tutorial for the effect, and it'll have the URL. What else? The shape tunnel is another one that I think is really cool. It's fast. You can customize the shape and the tunnel and how the camera moves. You can even use a path that you draw with the pen tool. So you could like trace the outline of a person or something and have that as your tunnel shape. I think I'm going to do a tutorial for this one as well, so you can see how to do that in that tutorial. And maybe I'll just go over this one real quick. So you are getting sleepy. There's like a bunch of different versions of this. I just want to warn you that these get pretty slow. This one's actually the fastest. So I don't know. You might want to stay away from the 4K version of this. And I don't think I went over. Okay, so this effects preview comp here, you've got one of these in almost all of these different folders. So this has all of these different effects in here and all the different presets or versions of those effects. It's just a way to quickly see all of them all in one place. But you don't want to try and customize them in here. If you want to actually play with it, open up the pre-comp. You can double click the layer here, or you can find it in here and double click. Okay, let's take a look at these design elements. So these can be used for motion graphics or however you want. You've got some anime action lines. I've just always wanted to make these. So this was my excuse to do it. I don't even know if those are trippy, but they're cool. This circle trail and the fuzzy worm, these are actually taken from the Wisp template from Creation Effects. So these are really cool. If you play it back, you're going to see this. This is a trail of particles, and it does this loop. And the circle trail does that same thing. So let me just explain real quick. The Wisp template, where these come from, it lets you make custom trails of particles, and it lets you move them wherever you want. So this is one look, and the circles is another look. But if you go to the Wisp webpage, you'll see that you can come up with lots of different kinds of looks for these particle trails. You've got your controls here if you select the layer, and so you can play with that and come up with lots of different things. Or if you like this, you can go get the Wisp template, and it's got tons of presets in there, and they look really cool. But let me tell you how it works. It's going on this looping motion path because it's following this layer, the target one layer. If I select that, you can see the motion path. If I reveal the position, you can see these keyframes on the position property. to make it go in this loop. So you can animate this target layer to go wherever you want in 3 dimensions, and the wisp, this fuzzy worm, is going to follow it. You tell it to follow any layer. In the controls, this first control here, you can set the target layer. So you can see right now it's set to target 1, that's this layer, which means it's going to follow it wherever it goes. These are all just particles. They're made with the, CC particle world effect. And if you want to learn more about how to customize it, I recommend that you just go to the Wisp webpage and look for the video tutorial there. Same thing with those other animations from Pixel Pusher. You can learn a lot more if you watch the Pixel Pusher tutorial. Oh, and another thing I should mention, you can see that these particles are starting to fade. That is the longevity property. If you open one of these layers and then open the CC particle world effect, the longevity is here. It's set to 3 seconds. I can show you the glitter spray and the rainbow spray. It's exactly what it sounds like. It just sprays glitter. So this one is set up a little differently. In this comp, we have this control layer. And a lot of the comps, I think all of the effects for footage, all of the comps in this folder are going to have this control layer. And it's the same deal. If you select the layer and go to your effect controls panel, you've got all your customization controls. So with a glitter spray, if you look on the control layer, you see you've got a position property and an angle property. So you can move the spray to track with your footage, whatever in your footage is spraying glitter. And you can animate the angle. All of these can be animated just like any property down here in your timeline. You can add keyframes, and then you can see the keyframes in your timeline by selecting the layer and hitting the U key. And then you can go forward and you can change that value. And so now that value will change over time. Anyway, that's really basic stuff. Okay, so now for the fun stuff. Let's look at these effects for footage. I've got a bunch of options in here. The quickest way to see what they all do is to look in this effects preview comp. Let me just open up one of these. So inside the folder, you've got the main comp with the effect, and then you've also got this your footage pre-comp. So if I open up that, you can see by default it already has your footage in it because you put it in here. But each of these effects have their own separate your footage comp in case you want to use different footage for that effect. I'll just leave it alone. We'll go with the mushroom, and I'll open that up. And we've got this weird liquidy, I don't know what that is, but I like it. And like I showed you before, we've got a control layer. All of these effects have a control layer, and you can select that and then use the controls to customize the effect or to animate it. Don't forget your instructions layers, read that. You probably want a clip with more movement for this effect. Yeah, so that's something that you'll discover. Different clips look better for different effects. Don't expect all of these to look great with your one shot. Some of them require more movement. Some of them might require less detail. What I recommend is, I don't know how you're going to use the template, but if you have lots of footage, just bring it all in, put them all in the put your footage here comp, maybe even edit them together so you've got a couple seconds of each clip. And then it's easy to preview each effect with each clip just by going down the timeline. What else? So we've got, I really like Dad is Drunk Again. Not that it's ever good that Dad is drunk again, but it looks cool. So on the control layer, this is actually lots of different effects all combined. You can turn on each effect, like the room spinner. You can turn that off if you want, and just have double vision and warping. You can try different combinations. My favorite stuff in here though is the time warping effects. So there's a couple. There's the freeze scan, which you might be familiar with because you can find a similar effect in phone apps. The other time warping effect is this one here, time warper. I like it because I just see a lot of potential and I haven't really explored it enough. But basically what's happening is it's warping your footage by time. So in the controls, I can turn on this displacement map, which is just this black and white gradient that's always changing. You can adjust the gradient with the controls, and any area that's black, that area of your footage will be displaced in time. So it'll be slowed down, I think, if it's black, and areas that are white will be sped up. So you've got different areas of your footage going at different speeds, and it's always changing. And so this uses this effect called the time warp effect, which comes with After Effects. But like the fractal effect, it's kind of useless, I feel like, as it is. It needed some adjustments. So that's what I've done here. One thing to note, you've got this quality resolution control up here. You want to keep it low when you're working with your footage and customizing. Keep it at like 50 or so or less. But when you render, you're going to want to turn it up. And it's going to make it a lot slower, but it'll increase the quality. And I chose really bad footage, I think, for a lot of these effects. You really want something with more motion. Anyway, too late now. I'm not doing it over. Just forget it. Let's move on to effects for transparent backgrounds. Disintegrator is cool. So again, you've got a your footage comp, and in there, by default, we've already got this weird chimp dancing clip, which is public domain. So I've included it here. You can see there's a keying effect on there. So this is just green screen footage. You can bring in your own green screen footage, or you can, if you've just got normal footage and you want to mask something out, that'll work too. But you'll need footage or a logo or something with a transparent background in order to see these effects. So it's kind of like smoke, or he's flaking away and disintegrating. You can control the speed and direction and all that good stuff on the control layer. I don't need to show you all of these. I like the fired up one a lot though. You can turn off the foreground. So now it's more like he's engulfed in flame. I don't know if I've ever used the word engulf in my life, but I kind of liked it. I'll close that and we're almost done. Let's look at the text effects. There's just one comp in here, and if you open it up, you can see we've got 20 different text layers. So these are taken from the creation title effects template. I know, I took a lot of effects from other templates and put them in here, and you might say that's lazy, and good for you. But the creation title effects template actually has 200 titles, so this is 20. If you like these, you'll really like that template. These are the ones that I thought just belonged in this template the most. So kind of psychedelic or trippy looking titles. Since they're text layers, it's really easy to edit them. You can just do it with your text tool and just click on it and type whatever you want. And then you can select the text and you can change the font to any font in your library. All of these are animated, so if you play it back, you'll see the animation. A lot of them have an opening transition effect, so you might not see anything on the first frame, but if you play it, it'll appear. And just like everything else, they've got their own customization controls. Just select layer, go to this panel, and you can see them here. And you should read the instructions layer up here, but if you decide to use any of these, you'll also want to read the instructions for that particular layer. They're in this comment column. So you can just make this column a lot wider and then expand the layer, and then you can read all the notes for this title. And the only rule for using these, you can just copy and paste these layers to any other comp. But before you do, if you're not working in this resolution, which is 1920 by 1080, so HD, let's say you've got a 4K comp and you want to move this to the 4K comp. First, change the composition of this comp to 4K. So you would go to Composition and Composition Settings, and then change the resolution. I'll just use this preset. And now you can just copy this layer, go to your 4K comp and paste it. And you can just scale this up with the character panel. And let me show you something else that you'll need to know. If you want to animate the layer to make it rotate or scale up or to change position. You can see if I add a couple keyframes here and then play it back, you can see the effects are not moving with the title, with the text. So that can be a problem. The way to get around that is to pre-compose this layer. So you can go to layer and then pre-compose. That'll put this layer into its own pre-comp, and then this layer will become a pre-comp layer, and you can do whatever you want with it with these transform properties, and all of the effects will stick with the text. The other option, actually I kind of like this option better. You just add a transform effect. So select the layer, go to effect, go to distort, and then go to transform. And as long as it's below all the other effects, you can animate these properties and everything will stay together. All right, transition effects. We're at the last folder. So these actually need some explanation. It's all written here in the instructions on this layer, but it might help to see me do it. So basically all of these layers are different transition effects, all the yellow layers. Down below we've got 2 example clips. So we've got this forest and then a street. So you're going to use these effects to transition from one shot to another. And you can see what each effect looks like just by turning it on and playing it. But it's not going to be the full effect. If you preview that, you'll get an idea of what it looks like, but you're not going to see the whole effect until you follow the instructions for that layer. So let me show you. If I select the basic twirl transition and then go to my controls, you can see you've got some instructions right here in the controls. And these are on each layer, but they will differ slightly for each layer. So you'll want to be sure to read those. Let me just set it up so you can see. So you would have your first shot here and your second shot here, and you want to transition from this shot to this shot with a basic twirl, this one. So you would copy this layer into your comp, and you would put this layer above your clips wherever you want that transition. I'm going to move it down here. And you should make sure that your clips are overlapping for the duration of that transition. And if we go back to our instructions for this transition, we can see place this layer above your footage, done. Copy bottom effects to footage layer and turn them on. So the bottom effects, those are down here. So you've got this little note here that says copy these effects to your footage, pointing down. So these effects, we'll just copy those, Control or Command C, and then we'll paste them to our footage to the first clip, to shot 1. I have these named backwards, doesn't matter. We'll paste it to that first shot, and then we'll turn them on. And what we just copied over is a wipe effect. That wipe effect is going to play through in sync with the effects on this transition effect layer. Okay, so copy the bottom effects, turn them on, set layer target to this layer. And actually that happens by default. So, but the layer target is this first effect that you copied over. It says layer target, and you're supposed to set it to whatever transition layer you're using, which is basic twirl here. So, and you can see by default, it's already set to basic twirl. So you don't really need to do anything for that. Lastly, it says keyframe transition completion from 0 to 100%. So transition completion is up here on the transition effect layer, and you can see that's already done too. You can see the keyframes if you select the layer and hit the U key. So here are the keyframes. If we go to that first one, you can see it says 0, and the second one goes to 100. And if you want a shorter twirl, you can just do that, or longer, you can spread them out. No matter how you adjust these, the wipe effect that you put on here is going to play in sync. So let's just see what that looks like. Whoops, we gotta turn it on. Once you're ready to export, and this is for beginners really, but most of you know how to do this, but you'll want to set your out point If you want to render 5 seconds, go like that, and then go to composition and add to Adobe Media Encoder queue. That'll open up Adobe Media Encoder. And I usually use H.264, and you can choose one of the YouTube or Vimeo presets here and then push play. If this fails, and it might, because Adobe Media Encoder has always been buggy for me, you can just go to composition and add it to the render queue, because usually if one of these fails, the other one will work. All right, I think that's it. And like I said, I'm going to go through these effects and determine which ones could use a little more explanation, and then I'll make a separate tutorial for it. I'll keep all those tutorials on the main webpage for Creation Trippy Effects, so you can check back whenever you want and see what's there. So I hope you make some crazy trippy stuff, and if you like this template, you can check out some of the other templates in this series, which is the Creation series. They all change your footage somehow, so there's artifacts, old film effects, VHS effects, glitch effects, and there's a bunch of other really cool and unique templates like Infinite Horizon, which lets you do custom perspective bending. There's Micro for making custom microscopic animations, Pixel Pusher for making cool particle animations, or Wisp for particle trails. You can make custom flocks of birds, or swarms of insects, schools of fish, custom oceans, a 3D storybook, falling leaves, auroras, 3D flags, connecting networks of lines and dots, and a series of custom animal templates that let you program the animals to do whatever actions you want. Those and a whole lot more at creationeffects.com.